At exactly 5:07 a.m. on August 2, 2025 local time, the governor of Samara Province received devastating news that ruined his entire morning. A Russian oil refinery worth $1.5 billion was turned into the world's most expensive barbecue grill by Ukrainian drones. You heard correctly, the lifeblood of Putin's war machine has been targeted from 620 miles away. Ukrainian agents have been monitoring it on screens for a long time. The Novokibashevsk oil refinery is likened to the beating heart of Russia's war effort. The fuel refined there powers Russian Su-34 bombers flying over Kharkiv and their attack helicopters sweeping through Donbass. At 01:30 a.m. Kyiv time, Ukraine was ready to destroy Russia's treasure with a single lightning strike. The agents used a group of 15 FP-1 attack drones. It was designed for one purpose: to find and overwhelm Russia's most critical, most protected strategic vulnerabilities. Each armed with a 4.4-pound RDX-shaped charge warhead and guided by U.S. satellite data, they are a $1,000 scalpel set for a saturation attack on a billion-dollar jugular. And this is how it all began. At 200 hours, the FP-1 swarm clawed its way into the night sky from a muddy, undisclosed field near Zaporizhzhia. They didn't climb. They immediately dropped to a gut-wrenching 130 feet. Hugging the terrain as they accelerated to their cruising speed of 75 miles per hour. For hours, they were ghosts, skimming over sleeping villages and dark forests, their path a masterclass in electronic hide-and-seek. This wasn't a straight line. The flight path was jagged, fed by near real-time U.S. satellite intelligence that painted a perfect map of Russia's radar blind spots. Using preloaded digital terrain data, the drones navigated autonomously, treating hills and riverbeds as their personal invisibility cloak. Their carbon fiber bodies absorb radar waves instead of reflecting them, and their tiny engines have a thermal signature barely warmer than a stray dog. Unfortunately, things didn't go smoothly. 2 hours in, the feed from Drone 7 suddenly shuddered violently. An unforecasted squall line, a churning wall of wind and rain, had materialized over the steppe. The 22-pound drones battled a sudden squall, their frames shaking like kites in a storm. On the operator's screens, fuel consumption indicators began ticking up into the red as the tiny engines fought twice as hard just to maintain altitude and course. One drone, its engine pushed beyond its limits, sputtered and died. Its icon simply blinked out on the tactical map in the Kiev command center, the first casualty before the battle had even begun. As the battered swarm emerged from the storm, a new nightmare appeared. A flashing icon popped up on the map, a mobile Russian radar patrol miles from its last known position. The perfect route was now a direct flight path into an ambush. The lead operator, his knuckles white, had seconds to make a choice. He made a risky call, a hard dogleg turn to the north, a detour that would burn precious minutes and even more precious fuel, taking them dangerously close to another known defense zone. They slipped past the patrol undetected. The cost, however, was steep. The swarm was now bruised down to 14 drones and running dangerously low on fuel. They had survived, yet they were limping towards what was supposed to be the most heavily defended airspace on the planet. This wasn't just a flight, it was a 600-mile-long brawl against physics, bad weather, and pure dumb luck. As the 14 remaining drones limp towards their final approach, they enter the kill box of what is supposed to be the most lethal air defense system on Earth, the S-400. Inside a hardened concrete bunker buried 50 feet beneath the Samara soil, Senior Lieutenant Dmitry Volkov stares at his main console board. For months, his post has been the most prestigious and most mind-numbing in the entire military district, protecting the Novokibashevsk refinery with the pride of Russia. He takes a sip of his lukewarm coffee, confident in the knowledge that nothing could touch this place. His screen shows all systems green, a silent testament to Russia's technological dominance. It's the quiet hum of a perfectly engineered killing machine waiting for a war that feels a million miles away. Closer to the refinery, the crews of 2 Panzer S-1s feel the same boredom. Their job is to be the last line of defense, the angry guard dogs meant to shred anything that survives the S-400's wrath with a fire hose of over 80 cannon rounds per second. Still, like every other night, the sky is quiet. Dmitry and his comrades are guardians of a silent fortress, utterly convinced of their own invincibility. They have no idea that 14 ghosts are currently slipping under their God's eye view, about to turn their silent fortress into the front line of a war they weren't prepared to fight. So how do you render a $600 million fortress completely useless? The Ukrainians knew the S-400 was built to fight a war from the 1980s, and they exploited its core design flaws with surgical precision. In addition to the low-altitude flight path below the radar range of the S-400, the agents also exploited two other important factors. First, invisibility. The FP-1's carbon fiber airframe gives it a radar cross-section of less than 1 square foot. The S-400's powerful software is specifically programmed to filter out small, slow-moving clutter like bird flocks or weather anomalies to prevent false alarms. The drones fit that profile perfectly. To the Russian computer, the swarm didn't look like a threat. It looked like a data error, a flock of geese to be ignored. Second, and this is the masterstroke overload, Ukraine didn't send one drone. They sent a swarm of 14. Even if the Russian operators manually bypass their filters, the S-400's fire control computer has a processing limit. Trying to track and calculate firing solutions for 14 erratic low-flying targets simultaneously is like forcing a supercomputer to play 14 games of high-speed chess at once. It creates a decision paralysis in the system. While the operators are fighting their own computer, trying to assign priorities to a confusing mess of low-priority targets, the swarm is already at their doorstep. It's a checkmate engineered not just with physics, but with cyber warfare. 15 hours. Inside the S-400 bunker, Senior Lieutenant Dmitry Volkov knows something is wrong. His big bird radar is still showing empty sky. However, a network of passive electronic intelligence ELINT stations has detected faint intermittent satellite uplink signals originating from the west. They're too weak to lock onto, yet the pattern is undeniable. Something is out there and it's talking to a satellite. The hunt is on. Switch to passive triangulation. I want every sensor listening, Dmitry commands. In the Ukrainian command bunker, a warning flashes across the operator's screens. The command is given, "Go dark. Radio silence. Now." The operators cut the drone's transmitters. The FP-1s are now on their own, navigating solely on their preloaded flight paths and internal gyroscopes. For the next hour, they are ghosts. At the same time, they are also blind and deaf. This is where the cheap commercial nature of the drones becomes their enemy. Over a 600-mile flight, tiny imperceptible errors in their MEMS gyroscopes begin to add up a phenomenon called inertial navigation drift. What started as a tight discipline formation begins to fray. The drones drift apart, their perfect route decaying. Drone, its slightly faulty Chinese-made servo motor causing a persistent 1-degree list, drifts nearly half a mile south of the main swarm. It flies directly over a civilian air traffic control radar, appearing not as a threat, but as a bizarre, slow-moving weather anomaly. That anomaly report is automatically flagged and forwarded to Dmitry's console. It's the first breadcrumb. He now has a general search area. 25 hours. The Ukrainian commander knows he has to risk it. The swarm is scattering. He orders the lead drone to break radio silence for a microsecond, a single encrypted data burst lasting just 0.2 seconds to transmit a new corrected flight path to the entire swarm. It's a desperate yet necessary gamble. It's also the mistake Dmitry was waiting for. That single data burst is all his ELINT stations need. Target the Krasuka 4. Full power. Blanket that entire sector, he orders. A truck-mounted Krasuka 4 electronic warfare system pivots and unleashes a focused, high-energy beam, creating an impenetrable wall of jamming energy directly in the swarm's path. In the Ukrainian bunker, the operators watch in horror as their satellite links are completely overpowered and severed. The drones are now utterly alone. This is the checkmate moment Russia had planned for. However, Ukraine had an ace up its sleeve, a technology reserved for a mission of this magnitude. The lead operator issues a command via a backup low-frequency channel. The lead drone deploys its narrowband laser data link, shooting a pencil-thin beam of light up to a classified American signals intelligence satellite in high orbit. The satellite acts as a mirror, bouncing the secure signal back down to the rest of the swarm. It's an unjammable, invisible connection. They are back in the fight. The battle, though, has taken its toll. The engine on the drone that had drifted earlier begins to sputter. The cheap commercial motor, never designed for a 4-hour high-stress flight, is failing. It loses speed, falling further and further behind the main swarm, now a lone, struggling target. This time, the 2nd Panzer S-1 unit gets a clean, solid lock. "Missile away," the Russian gunner reports with grim satisfaction. The Ukrainian operator sees the incoming missile warning. He knows his drone is doomed. A final command comes from his commander in Kiev. Make it count. Instead of trying a useless evasive maneuver, the operator pushes his dying drone into a steep climb and activates every transmitter on board its GPS, its comms, its video feed. For a few glorious seconds, the drone becomes the brightest electronic object in the sky, a massive beacon of noise. It's a tactical sacrifice. As the Panzer missile homes in on the irresistible target, the entire Russian air defense network from the S-400 to the Elant stations focuses all its attention on this single beautiful kill. And in that moment of distraction, the 13 surviving drones now reconnected via laser slip past the final defense perimeter undetected. At 0452 hours, the 13 surviving drones now reconnected via the unjammable laser data link execute their terminal attack profiles. They drop even lower to just 100 feet and push their throttles to the maximum. They are no longer a scattered swarm. They are 13 guided bullets aimed at the heart of the refinery. The lead operator has the best view. His feed is crystal clear. The sprawling, city-sized refinery fills his screen, a maze of pipes and towers glowing under the moonlight. Still, he ignores the clutter. His target is singular, designated by intelligence as the plant's most critical vulnerability, the AVT-11 Primary Distillation Unit, a 200-foot-tall cathedral of steel. On his thermal camera, it glows like a malevolent star. He places his crosshairs not just on the tower, but on a specific cluster of pressure valves at its base, a weak point calculated to cause maximum catastrophic failure. Inside the S-400 bunker, Dmitry Volkov watches his screens in horror. The decoy drone has been destroyed, yet the brief moment of triumph has turned to ash. His passive sensors are now screaming with proximity alerts as the main swarm emerges from the radar clutter too close to be stopped. He shouts commands. It's too late. The missile travel time is longer than the drone's time to impact. He grabs a radio, his voice cracking with pure panic as he bypasses protocol and screams a warning directly to the refinery's security channel. Air raid intruders on final approach, brace for impact. The warning is useless. It's a high-stakes knife fight in a phone booth, and Ukraine just brought 13 knives. 0500 hours. The first FP-1 strikes its designated target. The 4.4-pound RDX warhead, a marvel of destructive efficiency, detonates against the pressure valve assembly of the AVT-11 tower. The shaped charge focuses 1.1 million foot-pounds of energy into a molten jet of copper, traveling at 30,000 feet per second, punching through the 1.5-inch hardened steel like it's wet cardboard. For a split second, all hell breaks loose. Milliseconds later, the rest of the swarm arrives. It's a perfectly choreographed symphony of destruction. 7 drones slam into different critical points along the AVT-11 tower, their impacts timed to create overlapping shock waves that amplify the structural failure. The other 6 drones ignore the tower, completely striking their own secondary targets, the control room, the hydrogen production unit, and the pumping stations that feed the crude oil. In the Kiev command bunker, there are no wild cheers. Just a series of quiet, tense, impact-confirmed calls from the operators, punctuated by a single profound nod from their commander. General Budanov watches the tactical map as 13 friendly icons turn red, then vanish. Mission accomplished. This isn't chaos, it's a masterclass in applied physics. The initial small breach in the AVT-11 tower causes a catastrophic depressurization event. Thousands of gallons of crude oil, superheated to over 700 degrees Fahrenheit, flash vaporize as they hit the open air, creating a massive fuel-air explosive cloud. The subsequent ignition creates a pressure wave of over 29 psi, enough to flatten buildings, that rips through the refinery. The sustained chemical fire, burning at over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, begins to melt the steel support structures of adjacent units, turning a precision strike into a cascading, unstoppable inferno. This wasn't just an explosion, it was the calculated